What is up, guys? It's Clay here with Pro Glass Windshield Repair, back at it with another windshield repair video. Today we will be talking about the cap and fill method, what it is, when you need to use it, and how to do it. This is an important method that every windshield repair technician should know how to do. But this will be a brief video and it won't take long to explain. So stick around, you might find this useful. Back if you have a question. Starting out in the cap and fill method. What is it? The cap and fill method is pretty much when your pit or your impact point is too large or broad for your injector seal to get a proper seal. And so you would use resin before even putting the injector on, lay it over the impact point, quickly lay your Mylar tab down and cure it before resin flows to any other area of the brake other than the pit, because you don't want that to happen. Once it's cured, you use a razor blade to flush it off, and now you're able to proceed as normal by drilling and popping and then laying your injector over the new quote-unquote impact point that you have made. So you're capping it off with resin before you actually put the injector on so that you can get a proper seal with the injector, because the impact point initially is too big to do so, unfortunately. Let's talk about when to use it. Whenever you, as a windshield repair technician, deem that the impact point or the pit is too large for you to get a proper seal with your injector. Now, this is something you will learn over time as you do more and more repairs. Sometimes they will look like it needs a cap and fill, but I've been able to get away without doing one. I've also had it happen where I thought I could get away with it, but I put my injector on and it started to leak as soon as I, applied some resin pressure on there. If that happens, it makes the process a little bit harder and take a little bit longer, and so that's why we use the cap and fill method. Going back to why I said you don't want resin to flow to any other area of the brake when you use the cap and fill method. The reason you don't want that to happen is because if it gets into the brake and you cure it, because remember, we're curing that resin we're putting in the pit in order to cap it off so that you can put your injector on it. But if it gets in the body of the brake, prevent that from happening simply by curing it immediately, putting the curing light immediately over the brake. And the reason why is because if it flows into the brake too much, it can impede your ability to fill the rest of the brake by cutting off your entryway. Alright, so I'm doing editing for this video and I realized that I did not mention something that is important. I need to specify what resin you're using for this cap and fill method. So for the cap and fill method, you are not, I repeat, you are not using a normal resin that you would use to fill the actual chip with. You are going to want to use a pit filler, okay? There is specific resins used for filling the pit. This is the kind of resin you are going to want to use, and specifically a thicker pit filler and a thicker pit resin, okay? This is just going to make the process go a lot better, and it's going to keep resin from getting into the body. And this is very important. You do not want that to happen. So that's all. Anyways, back to the video. Let's talk about how you do it, okay? So it's pretty straightforward. As usual, inspect your damage. See what you're working with, okay? Then you're going to want to clean out the pit. Usually I do that by drilling into the pit. I will drill to the depth gauge, and I will also use isopropyl alcohol as normal to clean off the brake. And then another thing that you want to watch out for is what I like to call little slivers. So oftentimes these brakes that I use the cap and fill method on have what I like to call slivers. And so what that is you're going to have your impact point where the rock hit, and it's going to look white usually, sometimes not as bad, but that's broken glass where the rock hit. But then oftentimes around that, there will be what I like to call little slivers of glass missing. And these things can be sneaky because they're usually very transparent. And so you're going to have to bob your head around to make sure that it does or doesn't have a sliver. If it does have a sliver, what you're going to want to do is using a finer tipped carbide burr. You're not going to want to use the normal carbide burr you would use to drill into the impact point to create a pathway for you to fill it with resin. You're going to want to use a finer tipped carbide burr to roughen up that transparent area. The reason you use a finer tipped burr is because the one with the ball point at the end that you use to drill into the impact point can cause chunks of glass to come out of the sliver. And you don't want to do that because it can make the repair at the end look worse and the scar could be worse. The reason you want to roughen up that clear area is because if it's not obvious, you want to get a proper adhesion with your resin when you are capping it off with the pit filler before you cure it and fill it with resin and so on. That's pretty much it for the cap and fill method. One thing I really want to emphasize is make sure you check if it has a sliver, and if it does, you roughen it up. Make sure you clean out the impact point, the pit, specifically where the rock created the deepest divot. This is going to be where the deepest divot is. Use your drill to clean that area out, and use isopropyl alcohol as usual to clean out the area. You want to make sure it is clean before you use this method. And that's going to be it for the cap and fill method. I hope this was useful. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.